Oops, I muted myself. Good job. So this is probably going to be relatively short because hopefully a couple of people who I was just on a panel with will come in here and I will learn how to deal with guests on my own channel. Yay. Um, so, but until then, I'm probably just going to like read a bit of Luke. I like so I'm really loving the Sermon on the Plain right now, and so like I literally just read it as kind of my closing statement in the previous previous discussion I was in, and I might just read it again just because, like, I think there's just so much here, right? And I'll probably stay away from the bit where we were before. And blah, 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 blah. Okay, there we go. Sorry. So I read the bit about judging others, but I think there's another important passage here, which I think is very interesting and I think also applies. Why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but fail to notice the beam in your own eye? How can you say, brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, while you yourself fail to see the beam in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the beam out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Okay? So, I should probably also put the link in the chat here. I don't know how to do this. I'm still sorry. I'm still very new to YouTube and all this kind of and all that kind of fun stuff. So let me see. Is this the live one? Yes. Okay. Sorry. I'm going and I'm putting up the link in the chat. Boom. And so if you want to pin it. Okay, awesome. So that message is pinned in the chat now. Okay. So anyway, you hypocrite, first take the beam out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. So I think there's a lot that's going in this parable of the beam, as it were, right? So the goal here is actually to remove the speck from your brother's eye, right? It's to eventually come to this mutual understanding and so that everyone can see clearly, okay? That is the end goal, right? And we're not just like randomly removing beams from eyes, right? And so there's a purpose to it. Okay. And then what happens is that he said, what happens though is that when we do that, we need to make sure that there's not a beam in our own eye. Okay. And like there's some things that just seem like so amazingly obvious, but they aren't in practice nearly as obvious as they seem, right? And like I think this happens a lot with like these religious debates and whatnot. There is I think when it comes to epistemology, there's a lot of this. When it comes to arguing and debating, there's a lot of this. What happens is that you'll accuse somebody of having, is that a message for me? No, that's okay. Anyway, sorry, I'm still getting used to this setup here, and I thought there was a message in my comments for some reason. Anyway, but so what happens is that we have this epistemological standard, right? And we try to apply it evenly to everything. And often we don't succeed, right? There are just some beliefs we have that we prefer to others. And I and I can't say that I'm immune to that, that I'm immune to privileging things that I want to be true, right? And people will take that as a mission that I'm not unbiased, that I'm not um, that I'm that if I was truly skeptical, I definitely agree with them. But I'll be honest here, that's they have that same blind spot and they're not admitting it, right? That they have a preference for atheism or a preference for um, what have you that just overwhelms uh, what the evidence really says, you know? And like one of the things that I noted on my channel here is that I want to um, that I want to do is, and this is kind of the description of my channel. Therefore, having carefully investigated everything from the beginning, it seemed good also to me to create an orderly account for you so that you may know what degree of certainty to have in the things you have been taught. Now, you'll recognize that as a passage from Luke. Big surprise. I love Luke. It is probably my favorite of the channel. Not channels, synoptic gospels, right? So let me think. What else do I want to say? Well, okay, so, but I'll be honest, not a lot of my content is me being really systematic. It's mostly me like talking on a debate or doing an ad hoc Bible study or something like that. And I do have an idea of how I would like to weigh things, as it were. Okay, and it's essentially this Bayesian sort of reasoning, right? And it's basically you have the proposition that you won't say, for example, Jesus was raised from the dead. Okay. And then you take, say, 5 or 6 pieces of evidence, right? And these are the second. So you have the first order thing that you won't, okay, which is a statement like God raised Jesus from the dead, right? And then you have kind of, and that's the first level, right? Then you have the second level things are what are the things that go into God raised Jesus from the dead, right? These things might be things like the existence of God. It might be the messianic prophecies. It might be historical evidence, right? Okay. And then what you do is that you go down to a third level, okay, where you're like, hey, how does this evaluate? Okay. Not things that support those 5 or 6 or whatnot ideas. And so you have like maybe these, I don't know, 6 times 6 is 36. So 25 to 36 ideas, right? That you go through and you kind of grade each of them, right? And the goal here is like, yeah, sure, we're going to go through, grade what we think our priors are, and in like maybe like a 5 or 7 point scale, right? And then let the Bays do like the calculus, right? And then just do all of the calculations on what you should believe the Bayesian thing to be, okay? And that requires a lot of work to set up. On the other hand, I think it could be really awesome, especially if what I could do is get like a cool visualizer type thing and play with that. Like, I don't think it would be that hard because Bayes is just lots and lots of math, and computers are good at lots and lots of math, you know? So there's that. And I'm going to probably do this stream for about 15 minutes or so. And before I decide, no, they're not coming. Um, and the, and what I'll do is I'll go and do something else and say goodnight, you know? So that's what I'm doing at the moment. But what happens is that you have to go in and you have to examine yourself for all of these biases, right? So that you can remove this beam from your own eye, right? And once you do that, right, then you can see clearly, right? Then you're able to go to your brother and pick out the tiny speck from his eye, right? And I'm, I'm, and you're always in this process of log removal from your eye, you know? Um, so there's that. So, and I think this is also important, you know? Um, like, I got called a bigot earlier today just because I was explaining, I feel like, in a very rational one, two, three way what I think the Bible says, right? And and I I just don't want to be a bigot, right? I have my convictions, but the in the end result of for them of not being a bigot is I don't have the convictions that I currently have, right? I don't think the things that I currently have, right? My conclusions must be different to not be a bigot, and these are these are conclusions that I've prayed about, I've thought about, and I've thought about how you actually implement them, you know, and so and what does it mean, you know? Like one of the other things that's mentioned in basically the same breath is just adultery, you know, in terms of sexual immorality. And quite frankly, we don't um, we don't treat adulterers with the same, or culturally, we don't treat adulterers with the same disdain that we have for homosexuality, if that makes sense. But here's the thing, Ing, like, I would agree. Like, I'm bi, you know, and that's sometimes a bit hard to admit, right? But I have to think, okay, how does this affect me, right? How should I behave in the light of this, right? And I think that's a lot of something that a lot of people just don't get is I care very much more about how I'm supposed to behave, right? And I agree. I shouldn't act with bigotry, but I also shouldn't abandon my convictions. And there has to be a way, and I think there is for any set of beliefs for you to have them and not be a bigot, and that's what I strive for, you know. And this is also why I am pretty much anonymous when it comes to this channel so far, right? From being Faith from Facts rather than my actual name. So, yeah. But that really hurt me, being accused of bigotry. And because it's something that I really truly strive to be against. So anyway, it doesn't look like they're showing up to the party. So I'm going to go